In this video, I'm going to talk about my backstory. So, my life pre-transition. So, basically, how I grew up and the adventures I went on in order to discover my true self. So, ever since I was young, or ever since I could remember, I never enjoyed wearing dresses, skirts, or even frilly tops or bottoms. I remember one time when I was 5, my mother made me wear a sunflower dress, like a dress with sunflower prints on it. And now that I think about it, it was quite cute. However, on the way to the car, my friend saw me and laughed at me in a dress, since that was not my usual attire. So during that time, I don't remember ever really wearing a dress and feeling cute or pretty or happy about it. I do remember wearing more shorts and t-shirts and the usual gender-neutral clothing that kids wear. So I've always felt more comfortable in that type of outfit. I didn't want to get too fancy with like dresses and skirts and whatever little girls like to wear nowadays. So I just didn't enjoy wearing any type of traditional feminine clothing at all. It's just something that I disliked and never had a desire to wear ever since I could remember. So I remember crying though, like crying a lot, like crying like a river, until my mother realized how much I despised wearing a dress. And so she decided to take it off of me and change clothes. So after that, I don't ever remember her dressing me up in a dress after that ever again. As I grew older, my preference for more masculine clothing remained the same, but I grew even more intrigued by it as I got older. And I recall sneaking into my older brother's room and trying on his clothes, although they were too big for me at the time. And I was about 15 when I did that, and my brother is 7 years older than I am. I also remember wanting to switch closets with him. So yeah, that was, I think, in high school when I did that, and that desire to wear even more traditionally masculine clothing grew as I grew older. So whenever formal events came up at school, I'd always wear a gender-neutral white dress shirt and black dress pants. And I'd always envy the other guys who wore a full suit, and I always wanted to wear one too. And this was during high school. So I labeled myself as a lesbian tomboy. But as I got older and more mature, I realized that it didn't really fit right with me. I still felt like there was more to it. More than just the clothes I wore and the girls I was attracted to. This feeling was beyond that. I didn't understand it myself, since I was not aware of the correct term that I used to accurately describe myself, and I was also concerned about the health risks and the emotional changes that came with a physical transition back then. But as time rolled on, my desire to live as the opposite sex grew, and I started doing my research online. I was about 16 or 17 when I first learned about the existence of the Transgender Society. I watched the L Word around that age and discovered a trans man character named Max, who didn't sit well with the other lesbian characters in the show. He felt out of place, and I realized then that I related to him in that way, and many other ways too, except I think in the L Word, Max was a gay trans man, so he realized that he was more attracted to other men. So yeah, after that, I started watching more YouTube videos and discovering other trans guys online, that there were a lot more guys like me out there who felt the same. So after I did my research, I was still nervous. I didn't have the courage and the confidence to physically transition, even though that was what I wanted. That is what I was desiring for so long. But since that was such a big step for me, for anyone really, it took some time for myself to come around and realize that that is the only way for me to truly become happy with myself. And it was the best option for me, both physically, emotionally, and mentally. So a few years after that, I did my research online again, but this time for therapists, gender therapists near me, and I wanted to reach out to a health professional to see what options they have to offer, and just to talk about and learn more about this subject with them. So eventually I found a gender therapist nearby who was also, or is still, a trans man. So he knew exactly what I was and understood exactly what I was going through. So he was a lot older than me, and at the time he did not start on testosterone yet, so his voice was still in the feminine range. But when I reached out to him, I was still scared. I was still afraid of transitioning and the risk that came with it. So I kind of put it on standby, but as time went on, I realized that I'm just holding it off, and it wasn't healthy for me, and I needed to do something about it. So I reached back out to him, and I realized that it's really time to finally sit down with him and talk to him about this. The first interaction with him was by phone only. So yeah, I never even made it to my first actual appointment. I was that nervous. So my first official appointment with him was in person, and it was a nice experience. I went in there nervous, but I came out very happy, and I felt hope. I felt much more confident in myself and exactly who I was, and that I just learned so much from him as well. I gained a lot of knowledge from him, and eventually he provided me the letter to alter the sex on my license and my social security card, and what else? My passport. So very soon after I got the letter, I got all of that changed to reflect what I felt inside. So after I changed all that, I felt like I didn't need to attend any more sessions with him. So eventually I stopped going, and then about a year or two later, I started to look into hormone therapy. And so I researched the doctors, endocrinologists around here to help me with that. And I had such a hard time, such a difficult time finding one. Like one time I went to a OBGYN, which was completely a wreck. Like I went in there, actually had an appointment, and they all looked like they didn't know what I was talking about at first. But then the doctor was like, I've only had experience with one other trans person, but after that, I didn't feel comfortable treating them anymore. So if you go through me, I won't provide you the necessary dosage to actually see and feel any changes. So yeah, that was really disappointing. And yeah, I'm not sure why I went to a OBGYN at the time, but now I know better. And so I gave up on him. And yeah, I kept on searching, and eventually I found an endocrinologist who does have a lot more experience with trans people and is very respectful. And basically, I was on the wait list for like 6 months before I could actually see him for the session. So when I went, I didn't expect to get the script for the testosterone on that day, the first day. And I did. And I was super happy, super excited. And so that day I ordered the testosterone, and I was able to pick it up in a few more days later. And then I did my first shot, and 9 months later, here I am. I'm still alive, still staying strong, and still learning about myself, and just becoming wiser and wiser each day. So yeah, that was my life. Well, a little bit of a background of my life, since I didn't really talk much about my childhood growing up and how I felt and all that. So yeah, so that's really it. And I hope you guys enjoyed learning more about me today. And if you have any questions or anything you want to share, feel free to do so in the comments. And thank you guys for watching today. Take care.